Sometimes life feels confusing because you can be putting in real effort and still feel like nothing is changing. You try to improve your life. You try to move in a better direction. But the early stage of progress looks exactly like the stage where nothing happens. The days look the same. You feel the same. And when your effort doesn't show any visible result, it's natural to question whether the path is even working. That's why so many people step away. It's difficult to continue something that gives you no visible sign that it's moving forward. Regret works in a very different way. It doesn't appear while you're avoiding things or drifting through routines that don't fulfill you. Life feels normal during those periods. You don't feel like anything is going wrong. But regret is the feeling that arrives the moment you finally see what those quiet years actually cost you. It's the realization that you weren't growing, that you didn't use your time well, and that the path you once cared about never truly began. It's not loud or dramatic. It's a clear understanding that you stayed still when you needed to move. Today we're talking about that contrast, how progress can feel invisible for a long time, how that invisibility makes people give up, and how the regret of not moving eventually makes you realize the time you'll never get back. Welcome to the Glitch Cult, where we talk about the parts of life everyone experiences but rarely stop to think about. Progress sounds exciting when you think about it, but it rarely feels exciting when you're actually doing it. You expect that once you start improving your life, something inside you will shift. You expect to feel a sense of movement, some sign that you're heading in the right direction. But most days don't feel that way. They look the same as the days before, and there's nothing obvious that makes you feel like you're making any progress towards the thing you want to achieve. A big part of this is that improvement doesn't come with immediate feedback. You could do something good for yourself today, and tomorrow still feels normal. Eating better once doesn't change how you feel. Reading one page doesn't make you smarter. Practicing something for 10 minutes doesn't make you skilled. So even though you're putting in effort, the lack of obvious results makes it feel like nothing is happening. Progress also feels slow because small steps don't feel meaningful in real time. They don't give you a sense of accomplishment. They don't bring any emotional reward. You don't get a boost of confidence from taking one small action. You only feel the work, not the outcome. And because the work feels ordinary, you assume the results must be ordinary too. This is why it's easy to get frustrated. You're doing something, but you can't see where it's going yet. You start wondering if it's worth it. You question whether anything is changing. You feel stuck even though you're actually moving, just not in a dramatic or noticeable way. Another reason progress feels slow is because it requires repetition, not intensity. It's not about one big effort. It's about many small efforts that look and feel the same. Doing something repeatedly makes it blend into your daily routine. It doesn't feel special anymore. It feels like you're just going through the motions. And because the feeling doesn't change, you assume the result isn't changing either. And then there's comparison. You look at people who have already accomplished something and forget how long they worked quietly before reaching that point. You only see their results and compare it to the part of your life where you're still figuring things out. That makes your own progress feel slow or insignificant. The difficult part about making any progress is that it rarely feels like anything while you're doing it. It doesn't announce itself or make your days look different. It works quietly in the background, and because the change is gradual, you don't feel it from one week to the next. You only understand it later, when enough time has passed, and you can finally see how far you've come. But to reach that point, you have to live through the phase where nothing seems to move. That's where most people give up. But that slow, uneventful stretch is exactly where your future is being built. Nothing about it feels meaningful while you're inside it, but it's the only stage you have to go through before anything starts to make sense. And the moment you finally see the difference, you realize the quiet days were doing more for you than you ever thought. Regret is a strange feeling because it doesn't show up while you're avoiding things. When you're not working on your goals, or not following the direction you once cared about, life still feels normal. You wake up, you do your routine, you get through the day. Nothing feels wrong. There's no warning sign that you're drifting. And because everything feels familiar, you don't realize you're staying in the same place. That's what makes regret so sharp later. While you're not moving, you don't feel the cost of standing still. You don't see the opportunities slipping away because opportunities don't disappear loudly. They fade quietly. You don't notice the time passing because each day by itself feels harmless. One skip day doesn't look like a big deal. One postponed plan doesn't look like a disaster. And that's why most people don't sense regret in the beginning. There's nothing in those moments that feels like a mistake. Regret appears when you finally see the bigger picture. It usually happens in a simple moment. You see someone doing something you always wanted to do, or you think about a forgotten plan, or you're just honest with yourself for once. And suddenly, you see the pattern clearly. All those days that looked harmless now look like a long stretch of wasted time. All the moments you thought you'd do something later suddenly feel like lost chances. The realization feels instant, even though it took years to build. What makes regret uncomfortable is that it shows you the gap between the life you wanted and the life you actually lived. It shows you the version of yourself you could have become if you had followed the path instead of stepping away from it. That gap is usually quiet in the beginning. You don't notice it forming because you're too close to your daily routine to see what's missing. But once you become aware of it, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Regret also brings a very simple truth to the surface. You weren't stuck because you lacked ability. You were stuck because you didn't move. And that's a hard thing to accept. It's easier to blame circumstances or timing than to accept that your life stayed the same because your actions stayed the same. Regret forces you to face that honestly. This doesn't mean regret is meant to punish you. It's more like a delayed understanding. It shows you what your choices created, or what your lack of choices failed to create. The pain comes from clarity, not from failure. You finally see the cost of all the times you convinced yourself that you had more time, or more chances, or more certainty before taking a step. That's why people say regret hits instantly, not because it appears out of nowhere, but because the moment you finally see it, you see everything at once. The wasted years, the avoided steps, the direction you once cared about but never followed. It's all visible in one moment. And the hardest part is simple. Time doesn't come back. You can start again, you can rebuild, you can change your direction, but you can't undo the years you didn't try. That's the weight regret carries. But the lesson inside that feeling is also simple. If you move, even slowly, you don't create this kind of regret. Movement gives you a sense of direction, while doing nothing quietly disconnects you from the life you always wanted. When you place slow improvement and instant regret next to each other, it becomes easy to see how closely they're connected. Improvement feels slow because it needs repetition. Regret feels instant because it comes from avoiding those repetitions. In simple terms, regret is what builds up on the days you didn't move. It's the emotional result of choosing comfort over effort again and again. The strange part is that people already know small actions make a difference, yet they still avoid doing them. It's not because they don't want a better life. It's because small steps don't feel rewarding in the moment. There's no immediate signs that things are changing. Meanwhile, regret shows up with a very clear signal, and it usually arrives at the worst possible time. That's the real truth here. Doing a little consistently is the only thing that prevents regret later. Most regret doesn't come from dramatic failures. It comes from the tiny decisions you repeat without thinking. The days you said, "I'll start tomorrow." The moments you assumed that you would have more time later. All those small choices stack up quietly, and one day they turn into a realization that feels sudden. Improvement works the same way, just in the opposite direction. One small effort doesn't change your life on that day, but it does remove one future moment where you would have said, "I wish I had done something." When you repeat that small effort often enough, You slowly erase hundreds of potential regrets before they ever form. There's also something subtle that happens when you show up consistently. You start seeing yourself differently. It doesn't feel dramatic, but it slowly closes the distance between the person you are and the person you want to be. Regret grows in that distance. When the distance gets smaller, there's less room for regret to develop. Another simple truth is that improvement only feels slow in the beginning. There comes a point where the small things you did start working together, and the results become noticeable. The problem is that most people quit before reaching that point because the early days feel too quiet to trust. Regret never has this issue. It shows up fully formed, without any quiet buildup. If you're honest with yourself, almost every regret you carry could have been lighter or avoided if action had replaced hesitation. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's just a reminder that showing up isn't only about achieving something. It's also about protecting your future self from the emotional weight of knowing you didn't try. Slow improvement doesn't feel satisfying in the moment, but it removes the situation where you look back wishing you had started earlier. That's the real trade-off. You either deal with the mild discomfort of small daily effort, or you deal with the sharp realization later. One is steady, the other is sudden. When you see it this way, improvement stops being about excitement. It becomes something simpler, a responsibility to your future self. You don't do it to feel good today. You do it so you don't look back one day and wish you had moved sooner.